It's no surprise that over the past 15 years, there's been two players that have dominated the NHL, and that's Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin. So today, what we're going to do is bring them back to their rookie season and do a fantasy draft and see who has the better career. Obviously, in real life, Ovechkin's going for the all-time goal record, and Sidney Crosby is regarded as one of the greatest players to ever play the game with 3 Stanley Cups and being a tremendous leader. So we're doing a fantasy draft. I'm not going to be controlling the teams. I put myself as the Ottawa Senators. So let's load up the fantasy draft and check out Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin as they restart their careers in 2023. So we'll sort this by potential. Both of them are going to be high franchise. As you can see, both 83 overall at 19 years old on a 3-year deal at $9.250 million. So we'll start with Ovi. Unfortunately, in NHL, you can't update the player. So I basically just created brand new players. 83 overall, as mentioned. These are going to be his stats. He is a sniper. He does have his frame in real life, so 6'2", 238 pounds, and these are all of his X factors. And then for Sidney Crosby, obviously the centerman, nice little photo of him, looks like he can be Ovechkin's twin. Those are his stats. So let's auto draft here. I'm going to simulate everything. We'll see where he goes, and I'm Ottawa, so if Ottawa ends up drafting him, I'll just trade him to the second overall team, which would be the New York Rangers or Anaheim Ducks, however it works out. So, sim entire draft. Let's see who is going to win a Stanley Cup first between Crosby and Ovechkin in the career resimulation. Alexander Ovechkin is heading to the Calgary Flames as he is drafted 10th overall. Sidney Crosby not too far behind as the San Jose Sharks pick him up at 12th overall. So that means Ovi on the Flames, Crosby on the Sharks. Let's see how their team works out. And we'll take a look at their team. And look at that, Timmy Stützle in the first round. Love to see that. Firstly, let's check out Sidney Crosby's squad, the San Jose Sharks. So he'll be playing on a line with Johnny Hockey and Cole Caulfield, a pretty sick first line. Second line, they got Heidel, Drake Batherson, Nino Niederreiter, Kyler Yamamoto, Yarkov Trenin, Kasperi Kapanen. Don't know who Nico Hutatanen is, or Mark McLaughlin, and then Alexander Holtz, which is a good pickup on the 4th line, but a 68 overall playing there, and defensively to go along with it, Ivan Provorov, David Savard, Marcus Pettersson, Jeremy Lazen, and then Hinola, I think that's how you pronounce it, and then Brant Clark, which is going to be a really good player for them, hopefully. And then in the cage, his goaltender will be Dan Vladar, and then Mads Sogard. So a couple Ottawa Senators on this team with Drake Batherson and Sogard, but that's a pretty damn good first line. Johnny Hockey, Sidney Crosby, well, I guess we can call him Sid the Kid now, and then Cole Caulfield. Let's see how the team is looking for Alexander Ovechkin. Ovechkin also has a killer first line with JT Miller, Steven Stamkos, and then the great 8, Alexander Ovechkin. On that second line, Al Iafallo, Claude Giroux, Christian Dvorak, Rudolph Balcers, and then Marcus Johansson and Nick Bjugstad, Heineman. I actually like this guy, Protas. He plays in Washington right now with Ovi. I mean, he's a 76 overall. I think he's better than that, but I think he's going to be really good. Sveshnikov, and then on the back end, a big pairing of Ekblad and Ekholm, Muzzin, Falk, Giordano, and Shankirk. And then the goaltender for Alexander Ovechkin is going to be Semyon Varlamov and Sergei Bobrovsky. So that's an interesting 1-2 combination. Ovi definitely has the older team, so we'll see how that plays out. I think to start it off, Calgary's probably a little bit better, but let's get year number 1 done and see how Ovi and Sid the Kid do. A couple things to keep in mind here. I'm not controlling any of the teams, even Ottawa. The computer's controlling absolutely everything, so I have no control over what happens with either of the careers of Ovi and Sidney Crosby. Injuries are turned off and salary cap is turned on, so it will affect the way that the computer simulates. So we'll see how that goes, but let's get it going. With year number 1 coming to a close, Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin both do not make the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't think this is the biggest shocker as they were both drafted in the first round and are still 82 overalls, but I expect them to be in the playoffs next year. Let's go take a look at their stats. It looks like Sidney Crosby misses the playoffs by 2 points as he finishes with 88 points. Playoff spot would have been 90. If he was in the other division, he would have had the playoff spot over the Minnesota Wild. But Ovechkin and the Sharks last place, so they have a shot at getting Connor Bedard to play with Alexander Ovechkin, 2 absolute goal-scoring superstars. In Crosby's rookie season, 72 points in 82 games, a really good debut, minus 21, which isn't the greatest, 21 power play points. So I messed up earlier. Alexander Ovechkin just missed the playoffs, not Sidney Crosby, but Ovi had a really good year, 51 goals, 48 helpers, 99 points. Stamkos and Giroux both playing really well, and JT Miller all over 80 points. But so far in the head-to-head, Ovi a little bit better statistically and his team a little bit better. So we'll see how that draft lottery goes and if Sidney Crosby will be playing with Connor Bedard, not Alexander Ovechkin. Ovechkin spent the whole offseason working on his game, and he has moved up from an 82 overall all the way up to a 90 overall in year number 2. Looking at his stats once again, 99 points so far in the 82 games. He is looking like a hell of a player. Still on the Calgary Flames, of course, playing with Steven Stamkos and JT Miller, who have grown a little bit themselves, as Stamkos is now up to an 92 overall and JT Miller up to an 89 overall. But let's go take a look at Sidney Crosby and see if he was working in the gym as hard as Alexander Ovechkin was, as Sidney Crosby is an 88 overall, so he goes up 6 points. But look at that, Caulfield up to a 90 overall, Johnny Gaudreau up to a 91 overall. So Sidney Crosby, these are his stats now. Puck skills 5 points, senses 5-star, shooting a little bit 4 stars, physical not too well, skating 5 stars, and defense 3 stars. So we need to get that defense a little bit up there. But just the year number 2, let's see how the boys do this year. For the second straight year, Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin have been held out of the Stanley Cup playoffs once again. Sidney Crosby once again leads his team to last place in the Western Conference as the San Jose Sharks are struggling. Alexander Ovechkin leads the Calgary Flames to the 12th seed in the Western Conference, which is another terrible record. So 38, 38, and 6 for Ovi in year number 2, while Crosby goes 34, 46, and 2 with a shot at the draft lottery. But let's take a look here at the player stats and we'll see how both players did. So we'll start off by going to the San Jose Sharks and see where Sidney Crosby did. So in year number 2, he is now a 90 overall, 74 points in 82 games, so slightly better than his previous year. Doesn't get as many goals, but plus minus gets a bit better, a couple more assists and a couple more points with 74. And if we go all the way to Ovechkin, we'll see if he's able to crack the 100 point mark this year. So this year, Ovechkin has an incredible year where he scores 70 goals, 38 helpers, 108 points, but not good enough to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. That brings Ovi's totals up to 121 goals in 164 games. So just like real life, he does not have a problem of scoring goals, but we need to get him and Sidney Crosby in the playoffs to match up and see who can get their first Stanley Cup first. I forgot to mention last year that Alexander Ovechkin did win the Calder Trophy as the best rookie, giving him a 1-up on Sidney Crosby. And Ovechkin also adds a little bit more hardware to his collection this year as he does win the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy with 70 goals. Ignore the 2019-2020, that's the old Ovechkin. Looks like Sidney Crosby is going to be getting some help in San Jose as they win the draft lottery and will have the first overall pick in the upcoming NHL entry draft. With the first pick in the NHL entry draft, the San Jose Sharks choose a center sniper, G. Aho. It's contract year, and Ovechkin didn't have that great of an offseason as last year. He jumps from an 82 to a 90, but this year just a 90 to a 91. So everything else looking pretty good except for defense, so hopefully he can get that a little bit higher, but it also means that the faceoffs need to go up, which just isn't going to happen. Crosby is now a 91 overall, same overall as Alexander Ovechkin, and their first round pick, Aho, is on the roster playing the second line. The team's looking good. Crosby 91, Caulfield 90, and Johnny Gaudreau a little bit older, but 89 overall. Taking a look at his individual stats, still got 5 stars all across the board for puck skills, senses, shooting, and skating. Physicals getting up there, and defense again needs to go a little bit higher as his awareness is only 81, so hopefully that can go up a little bit. But contract year for both Crosby and Ovi. Let's see if this is going to be the first time they make the Stanley Cup playoffs or if we're going to be held out of the playoffs once again. For the first time in Crosby and Ovi's career in the resimulation, they have both made the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they are both on the bottom left-hand side of the bracket. So there's a chance that they will meet in the West semifinals. But before we get there, let's get through round 1. And of course, let's take a look at how they did in the regular season to lead their team to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time. Ovi and the Flames finished second place in the division with 103 points, good for 48 wins, 27 losses, 7 overtime losses, while the San Jose Sharks just sneak in the playoffs thanks to one regulation plus overtime win, 36-35 over the LA Kings. Unfortunately for the Sharks and Sidney Crosby, they're going to be going up against the highest seeded Western Conference team, but hey, they made the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let's go take a look at their stats here and see how they did. We will start by going all the way to the San Jose Sharks, and instead of rookie skaters, we'll go all skaters. And Sidney Crosby is finally over a point per game for the first time in his career with 94 points in 82 games, -5 still, 85 penalty minutes, so quite the goon. As for their first overall pick last year, Aho puts up 42 points in 82 games, but was a -27. Let's go take a look at Alexander Ovechkin now, as last year had 70 goals. So we'll see if he's able to top that, as this year he is once again 72 goals, 111 points, plus 19, his best season to date. As we take a look at his full career stats, 318 points in 246 games. So in their contract year, it looks like both of them are able to make the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll see how they do in round number 1. Crosby and the San Jose Sharks are able to pull off the upset in round number 1 as they take out the top seeded Anaheim Ducks in 7 games, but unfortunately Ovi is unable to advance to round 2 as he loses 4-2 to the Vancouver Canucks, as we now have the Vancouver Canucks versus the San Jose Sharks. If you look in the bottom corner here, the Sharks have a 3-2 series lead. Can they close it out tonight, or are we going to game 7 and the Western Conference Finals? Sidney Crosby versus the Colorado Avalanche advanced game. We'll see how this goes. 1-0 for the Sharks. Let's see if they can keep it going 1-1 after game 2. Game number 3, the Sharks lose that as Colorado takes a 2-1 series lead. Game number 4, and we're all tied up once again, as it looks like for Carolina, the other series, Carolina is up 3-1 over the Buffalo Sabres. So let's advance another day here, and Colorado wins once again. So Crosby is going to have 2 straight wins if he wants to advance to his first Stanley Cup Finals. And is he able to do it? Game number 7. What do we have in the tank for Sidney Crosby here? Can he advance? He falls in game number 7 to the Colorado Avalanche. A good effort from Crosby. But let's simulate the rest of these playoffs here, and then we'll take a look quickly at the stats. I think hopefully Colorado wins the cup. It just softens the blow as the Carolina Hurricanes actually win the Stanley Cup. Although Ovechkin bows out quickly in the Stanley Cup playoffs, he once again does win the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy, making that 2 years in a row. After back-to-back 70-goal seasons, the Calgary Flames have re-signed Alexander Ovechkin to a massive contract, 8 years worth $11.73 million per year. So he's going to be getting paid and playing a lot of his career in Calgary. Stamkos still in the squad and JT Miller, but they have a new first-line left wing as it's Chandler Stevens. And not to mention, Ovi is now a 94 overall. Looking once again at his stats, everything 5-star except for that defense category. Full career stats, 318 points in 246 games, almost 200 goals already in his career. After a successful playoff run with the San Jose Sharks, Sidney Crosby also gets a contract extension for the San Jose Sharks, and he is up to a 95 overall, as you can take a look at his stats here. 5 stars everywhere for him as well, except for the defense category. If we look at his full career stats, he's up to 240 points in 246 games, so just under a point per game, but is a -43. But if we look at his postseason stats, 17 points in 20 games, so not too bad for his first career playoff run, but his contract is looking like 7 years for $10.7 million. So not as much as Ovi, but around the same amount of term. So let's simulate year number 4 and see if they can once again make the Stanley Cup playoffs and match up against each other for the first time. I accidentally simulated a little too far, but after their massive contract extensions, both Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin once again do make the Stanley Cup playoffs, but the only way they can match up this year is if they both go to the West Finals. So that'll be a story to keep our eye on. But let's go take a look at the team stats here and see how both of the squads did this year. So we'll just go into the Western Conference. Actually, I guess we can go to the Pacific Division and take a look at the teams here. So San Jose, so for the first time in Crosby's career, he outperforms Alexander Ovechkin in the regular season as they win the division with 111 points, 51, 22, and 9, while the Calgary Flames go 44, 33, and 5. So respectable from both players. Player stats here. Let's see how both teams did here. We will go to the San Jose Sharks first, as Sidney Crosby has a massive year, 111 points in 82 games, plus 31, 78 assists. That's a great year for Sidney Crosby, especially that plus, because he was minus 47 in his career before coming into this year. But the Calgary Flames, let's see how many goals Ovi got, and it is 63, so a little bit lower than normal, but has his highest career point total so far with 121 points in 82 games, 63 goals, and 58 helpers for a plus 15 power play goals. But let's get into the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Calgary Flames have swept the Arizona Coyotes, while the San Jose Sharks, they're in a battle with the Edmonton Oilers here, 2-2 series. Let's see who takes game number 5, and the first seeded San Jose Sharks will need a rally off 2 straight wins if they want to advance to round number 2. Let's see if they have it in them. And game number 7 is booked. They are on home ice. Can they get it done? And the San Jose Sharks, one year finished 8th seed, eliminate first overall, but this year finishing first seed, but eliminated by the 8th overall Edmonton Oilers. Calgary Flames are still in it, but in round 2, they're in a world of trouble versus the Colorado Avalanche as they are down 3-1. Can they bounce back and win 3 straight, make it 3-2 in the series, game number 6? But unfortunately, they lose game number 6, and the Calgary Flames and Alexander Ovechkin have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. Sidney Crosby finally collects some hardware as the San Jose Sharks do win the President's Trophy, but eliminating the round number 1, so it doesn't really mean anything. As for individual awards, I believe no one will take anything home except for the Maurice Rocker-Richard, which once again goes to Alexander Ovechkin. Heading into year number 5, Ovechkin is now a 95 overall, but the rest of the team is getting a little bit older and the overalls aren't too high, but we still have Stamkos at 87, Robbie Fabry has joined the squad at 87 overall, Chandler Stevens 87, and JT Miller is up to a 90 overall. So hopefully this team does make the playoffs, but taking a look at Ovi's individual stats, there they are. And then his full career stats, he now has 439 points in 328 games, 256 career goals. As for Sidney Crosby, whose team is on the up and coming right now, he is now a 95 overall, just like last year, playing with Gaudreau and Cole Caulfield still, but that second line, third line, he's got an 89 overall on that third line as they are gearing up for a potential run. And I am not seeing the rookie that they signed. Oh, there he is. Aho, sorry. Just missed him. 87 overall now. So soon he'll probably be playing on that top line with Sidney Crosby, which will be very beneficial as he is a sniper and Sidney Crosby is the playmaker. But Crosby is now over a point per game and only now a minus 12 in his career as the Sharks are turning around to be one of the better teams in the NHL. So let's get year number 5 underway and see if one of these superstars can finally win their first career Stanley Cup. Make it 3 straight years for Ovi and Sidney Crosby making the Stanley Cup playoffs. Statistically speaking, Crosby falls just short of that 100-point mark as he has 99 points in 82 games, plus 21, so he will now be a plus player in his entire career. While Alexander Ovechkin once again has another 60-goal campaign with 65 goals, 47 helpers, and 112 points. He is now up to 321 goals, but we'll see if they can match up for the first time in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. I've never seen this happen before, but look at the first round in the Western Conference. Every series was a sweep as the Sharks sweep the Golden Knights, the Flames sweep the Nashville Predators, the Canucks sweep the Kraken, and finally the Arizona Coyotes sweep the St. Louis Blues. The San Jose Sharks are now 8-0 in the playoffs as they sweep the Vancouver Canucks, but the Calgary Flames are in a war with the Arizona Coyotes as game number 5 goes down tonight and Calgary is able to win it. Can they close it out? Game 6 and Calgary eliminates the Arizona Coyotes, and for the first time we have a Sid versus Ovi Western Conference Finals for one to book a trip to their first ever Stanley Cup Finals. Let's see how it goes down. Game number 1, and it's going to be the Carolina, and it's going to be the and it's going to be the Calgary Flames who win it. Game number 2, Sidney Crosby ties it up to make it 1-1 as we move into game number 3, and Sidney Crosby wins once again. Remember, Sidney Crosby only has 1 loss these entire playoffs. Game number 4, make that 2 losses as we are tied up at 2-2 as both of these superstars are going hard. Advanced day, and Calgary wins this game 3-2 and takes a 3-2 series lead. Oh my, is it going to game 7, or is Ovi gonna close it out right here in game number 6? And he does, as Ovi and the Calgary Flames are going to the Stanley Cup Finals to play the Montreal Canadiens. We'll see how this goes. Game number 1 goes to Ovi and the Flames. Game number 2 tied up as Montreal wins 3-2. Game number 3, Montreal wins once again as they rally off 2 straight versus the Flames. This is a must-win game here for the Flames. Game 4, and there it is, a 3-2 win for the Calgary Flames to keep this series alive as we go to game number 5, where the Montreal Canadiens get it done once again. So Calgary will need to rally off 2 straight wins if they want to win the Stanley Cup, and Ovi to get his first career Stanley Cup. Does he have what it takes? And he does not, as they fall to the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games, losing 3-1. Good effort, good effort. For the 4th straight year, Alexander Ovechkin wins the Maurice Rocket Richard Trophy. But look at this Montreal Canadiens team. Jack Hughes wins the Art Ross, the Hart Trophy. James Norris Memorial Trophy goes to Josh Morrissey. Lady Byng, Jack Hughes. And then Kasha gets the Conn Smythe Trophy. Out of every player in the league, I gotta see how we did this. I gotta go take a look here. Player stats, and we'll go the entire league. And I just want to see how much points Kasha had. 28 points in 26 games. Jack Hughes right behind. Fabry was the leading point getter for the Calgary Flames, which is surprising. Ovi 24 points, 15 games, or 15 goals. But wow, Kasha wins the Conn Smythe. That is a shocker. It looks like Ovechkin has capped off at a 95 overall, but he is still only 24 years old, so you never know. He might grow just a little bit more, but he is still playing with Steven Stamkos and Robbie Fabry. Sidney Crosby still listed as a 95 overall as well. Aho up to a 90. So this team looking a little bit more like Stanley Cup contenders, as their lowest overall is a 79 with Duhamie, I believe it's pronounced, Nolan Patrick. But Sidney Crosby, what are you doing so far for us? 450 points plus 9. Not too bad, not too bad. And in the playoffs, he has 37 points in 41 games played. 1 year after making it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, Alexander Ovechkin and the Calgary Flames do not make the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. But Sidney Crosby and the San Jose Sharks do make the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they will be playing the Colorado Avalanche. Leading the way for the Sharks was none other than Captain Sidney Crosby, as he puts up 114 points in 82 games, and he was a plus 47 as that line completely dominated. Only 23 power play points, so almost 100, basically 90 even strength points, which is absolutely insane. 81 assists. And what went wrong for the Calgary Flames? If we go take a look at them, what went wrong here? Calgary, Ovechkin, 69 goals, 54 helpers, 123 points, which is also his best ever season, but does not make the Stanley Cup playoffs, which is an absolute shocker. 70 goals almost again, which is insane. In round number 1, Sidney Crosby and the San Jose Sharks squeak out a game number 7 win against the Colorado Avalanche. They were up 3-2, lost game 6, but were able to bounce back and win game number 7. And they're facing a team that has eliminated them several times in these playoffs, and it's the Vancouver Canucks. Can they finally bounce back and take out the Vancouver Canucks as they start with game number 1? Winning that. Game 2, they win that as well to take a 2-0 series lead and make that 3-0. Will you choke, or is it a sweep? Game number 4, they lose, but that's okay. We still got 3 more chances to get this done. Sidney Crosby, what are you made of, as they lose once again, this time 5-3. Now it's getting scary. Game number 6, 7-6 loss, and we're going to game number 7. Can Sidney Crosby hold off the reverse sweep? And, oh, I don't know. and he survives as the San Jose Sharks win, and they're going to play the Chicago Blackhawks in the third round here, surviving a scare. But here we go, up 1-0 with a 6-4 win. Make that 2-0. Can you make it 3-0? 2-1 as they fall 3-2 in game number 3. Game number 4 to tie it up. Chicago wins back-to-back games. Game number 5, and Chicago makes it 3 straight as they win 8-2. That's a tough loss. Game 6, come on, Sidney Crosby, to make it back to the Stanley Cup Finals. Do you have it in you? And they do not, as the Chicago Blackhawks eliminate Sidney Crosby and the San Jose Sharks. We're about 3 years into the future now. I've simulated a couple of years, and the Calgary Flames have made it all the way back to the Stanley Cup Finals, where they will be playing the Philadelphia Flyers. So it gives Alexander Ovechkin his first shot at winning the Stanley Cup. Let's see if he can get it done or if he will fall once again. Game number 1, and Calgary falls in the series 1-0, but they tie it up with a nice 2-1 win to even the series at 1-1. Game number 3, and Philly once again takes the lead. Game number 4, and make it a 3-1 series lead for the Calgary Flames. So Ovi's gonna have to rile off 3 straight wins to win the Stanley Cup. Does he have it in him? And no, he doesn't. Philadelphia wins the Stanley Cup in 5 games. Tough. We simulated another couple of years, and we are now in year number 10 of the Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin resim. And Sidney Crosby in year 10, let's take a look at his last 5 years that you would have missed during the simulation. So 114 points, 94 points, 107 points, 111 points, and then this year 103 points. So he is now at 979 points in 820 games plus 117, and his postseason stats 78 points in 80 games. So he's been good in the playoffs, but as you can see, he continuously has been getting first rounded. So hopefully a deep run is in the future for Sidney Crosby. Let's go take a look at Alexander Ovechkin's stats though over the past 5 years and see how many goals the great 8 now has. So the Calgary Flames, he is coming off a year where he scored 81 goals in 82 games, and the 4 centers, that's insane. 118 points. I'm interested to see his stats here. So 69 goals, 70, 56, 66, but he has been dominating. 2 years before this were actually some of his lower stats, but he is at 1,095 points, 663 goals, and in the postseason, he had one long run last year where he had 30 points in 22 games, 17 goals. But the reason why I stopped the simulation here is if we go to the playoff tree, the Calgary Flames and San Jose Sharks are matching up once again in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so we have to slow sim this, and hopefully this is the year that finally either Crosby or Ovechkin are able to break through and win the Stanley Cup for the first time in their careers. We'll do a slow simulation here and monitor the bottom here. So game number 1 goes to the San Jose Sharks. Game number 2 goes to the Calgary Flames as we have a 1-1 series after 2 games. Calgary takes game number 3 as well to make it a 2-1 series lead. Can San Jose answer back? And Calgary and the Ovechkinator make it 3-1. Crosby's going to need to rile off 3 straight games. Can he do it? Game number 5, and Ovi is advancing to round number 3 once again. And he's had some bad luck, so we'll see if it's able to continue as he's got the Battle of Alberta coming up. Calgary versus the Edmonton Oilers here. Game number 1, Calgary takes it. Game number 2, Calgary takes it 2 games away from the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 3, Edmonton answers back with a 5-1 victory. Moving on to game number 4, Calgary 6-4 win, and they are 1 game away from making the Stanley Cup playoffs. And here it is. Oh, this is perfect. Calgary Flames versus the Ottawa Senators. I'm controlling Ottawa so I can slow sim all of these games, but can Alexander Ovechkin do it? Looking at the player stats of the playoffs, it looks like Alexander Ovechkin is currently leading the way with 16 goals in 15 games, 24 points. Who does Ottawa have? So Jesper Bratt, let's go to the Ottawa Senators to kind of get an updated feel on who they have on the squad. Jesper Bratt, Connor McDavid, Kim Dansk, Fabian Lysell, Atu Ratti, Rensfield, Daigle. But this is going to be a good one. This is going to be a good one as the Sens, we won 50 games. Connor McDavid as well. 50 games. Ottawa versus Calgary, Stanley Cup Finals. Let's slow simulate and see if Calgary can stomp by the Ottawa Senators. McDavid versus Alexander Ovechkin. First period. And then we get a goal from Connor McDavid on Ottawa. But 2 goals from the Calgary Flames as we're out shooting them 2-1. I'm saying we like I'm part of Calgary. I guess I am here. Connor McDavid scores his second. Matt Savoie gets a huge goal. Third period and Calgary runs away with it as the depth scoring comes through with a huge 5-2 win in game number 1 versus the Senators. Game number 2, let's slow simulate this as the Ottawa Senators do have home ice, so we are at the Canadian Tire Center in Ottawa, Ontario. First period, that's a tough start as 4 goals for the Ottawa Senators, 1 goal from the Flames. Second period, make it 8-1. Third period, it's going to be an 8-1 loss in game number 2. Well, if you're going to lose, might as well lose big, right? 1-1 series. After 2 games, game number 3 now. Can the Calgary Flames bounce back on home ice? That's a tough start as they're out shooting Ottawa at 19-5, but are down 1-0. Second period, 2-2. Okay, we'll take that as Lucius and Bastion score goals, but I have yet to see a goal from Alexander Ovechkin. Let's slow simulate the rest of this game here. Shots are 2-1 essentially, 39-19. The Sens goalie is standing on his head. Power play, Ovi unable to break through. He was over a goal per game in the postseason, a goal per game in the regular season, but it looks like we are going to overtime in game number 2 here. Who is going to be the winner? 48 shots to 26. 10 minutes left in the game. 50 shots for the Flames. The Sens just eclipsed the 30 mark. Power play, unable to capitalize. And are we going to double overtime? We are not, as Water scores with 4 minutes left, and the Senators take a 2-1 series lead over the Calgary Flames as their goaltender is standing on their head. And we are in Calgary once again. Can Calgary tie up the series, or will the Ottawa Senators take a stranglehold series lead? First period, 0-0. We can't break through here. Second period, there it is. 4-1, and thank you, Alexander Ovechkin, finally introducing himself to the series as Barrett Hayton also scores 2 massive goals, and then Cormier. Third period, 6-3. Ovi scores his second. And if you're a Flames fan, that's what you want. You want Ovi waking up and scoring a couple goals, as he is going to be the reason you win the Stanley Cup if you end up getting it. We're knotted at 2-2 now. Best of 3 series, going back on the road to Ottawa to see if we can steal another game here. 2-2 series. Period 1, 1-1. Waters, the overtime hero in game number 2, and Maltsev scores a goal on Devin Levy. It looks like their goaltender is. Second period, 2 goals for the Flames, and it's Ovi once again, and then it's also going to be a shorthanded goal for Maltsev. So a 3-2 lead in game number 5. Can the Flames hold on as Ovi scores his second of the night with a huge power play, unable to capitalize, but the Sens get a power play, unable to capitalize on their end as well. The Flames are peppering the Ottawa goaltenders. Levi, oh, that's a huge goal. Rasmussen makes it 5-2, 6-3 as Norina gets a goal to end it. 1 game away. I haven't heard Connor McDavid's name. I'm just going to say it. I haven't heard Connor McDavid's name. Game number 6 with the chance to win the Stanley Cup on home ice. Can the Calgary Flames do it? First period, 2-1. And who is it? None other than Alexander Ovechkin opening the scoring. And then Dance gets one and Bastion. Second period. Okay, that was speak of the devil. There's Connor McDavid gets a goal for the Senators. Ratti gets a goal for the Senators. And McDavid another one. Savoie, Maltsev, and Cole Perfetti all get goals for Calgary. And we're going to the third period with Calgary up by 1 goal. make that 2 goals as Harley gets one, Savoie gets one, and is the Calgary Flames gonna win their first Stanley Cup? Ovi to get his first Stanley Cup as we make it 8-5, 9-5. Perfetti gets a goal. These are all goals outside of Ovechkin, and it looks like the Calgary Flames and Alexander Ovechkin are gonna be Stanley Cup champions. We gotta hop in this and watch the last couple minutes for sure. Number 11, Alexander Ovechkin. They don't have a captain, but he does win the Conn Smythe Trophy. Well, we can... 3 choices remaining? I want to give it to Ovi. Give it to Ovi. It wouldn't let me give it to Ovi. Who am I giving it to? I guess if you don't win, you don't get to choose. But it's going to Sam Steele. And to make it official, the playoffs are now complete, and the Stanley Cup champions are the Calgary Flames and Alexander Ovechkin. Sidney Crosby is down 1-0 in Stanley Cup, so he decides to pack up his stuff from San Jose, and he has signed a deal that is worth $17 million over the next 6 years, and that's average annual value with the Vegas Golden Knights to win his Stanley Cup. He's going to be playing with Hudson Cuff, who is 89 overall, Holden Henderson, 88 overall, Philip Zadina, Jack Roslovic, Sean Farrell, Earl Quirk, what a name. And we'll take a look at Alexander Ovechkin. He is still on the Calgary Flames playing Matt Savoie and Oscar Rodin with Cole Perfetti, who was an MVP last year in the playoffs. So we'll see if Alexander Ovechkin repeats or if Sidney Crosby and the Vegas Golden Knights can tie up the series between Ovi and Crosby Stanley Cup. I almost butchered that, kind of did. But let's get year number 11 done. In the final year of the simulation, Sidney Crosby switches teams to the Vegas Golden Knights, but he does not make the Stanley Cup playoffs. But the Calgary Flames and Alexander Ovechkin do, where they go all the way back to the Stanley Cup finals. But once again, for I believe the 3rd time in his career, he falls in the Stanley Cup finals. But he did get the 1 ring, so at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. But let's go take a look at the final stat total of the 11-year simulation between the 2 players. And we will start with Sidney Crosby and the Vegas Golden Knights. So Sidney Crosby puts up a 100-point season, and through the simulation, he acquires over 1,000 points with 1,080 points in 902 games, 125 points in the playoffs. He had 82 points in 85 games, but was a -4, only a plus player in 1 of the playoff runs, so was not that efficient in the playoffs, which is very, very unlike Sidney Crosby. But on the other hand of the spectrum here, we have the Calgary Flames, and oh my god, Alexander Ovechkin had 95 goals in 82 games, 131 points, 36 power play goals, as him and Savoie have become the absolute dynamic duo. Savoie 107 points. But let's go take a look at Ovi. He has 758 goals, 1,226 points in 900 games. So in this simulation, Alexander Ovechkin is by far the better player, and he's always been probably a better point producer, definitely a better goal scorer in his entire career. But in the postseason, he was also an absolute freak with 19 goals last year in 24 games, 28 points, 150 points in 121 games played, which is good for a +32 as well. So Ovi was an absolute phenom during this simulation. If we kept it going, he'd probably end with, I would say he's 30 years. He probably has another 10 years, probably around 1,300 goals, 1,400 goals easily. Would be my prediction. Preseason stats: 52 points in 34 games, 8 points in 3 games there. Just an absolute freak of nature. But that's going to do it for this video. Alexander Ovechkin versus Sidney Crosby head-to-head career re-simulation has Ovechkin winning 1 cup and a ton of hardware, where Sidney Crosby never really able to catch his footing. Let me know which 2 players you want to see in the next video, and if you want to see what would happen if you put Connor McDavid down in the AHL, check out this video. This video card will appear now, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a nice day. See you later.